And I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. This land was never ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. The legacy of white supremacy terrorizes our past, our present. Liminal has and always will be a response to this, to changing the bleached white vision of the arts industry, of Australia, of the future. We point to the past and present excellence of Asian Australians and people of colour and offer new visions of what a future could and should be. So today, as I was writing this, I was thinking about how special the Emerging Writers Festival is. How for those who've experienced it more than once, it becomes a kind of yardstick each year. It's kind of like New Year's, when you're shoved into very rudely questioning, who am I going to kiss tonight? Who have I been kissing? Who do I want to kiss? Or like at your birthday when you're forced into, what have I done this year? What am I doing? What will I do? I think the Emerging Writers Festival is a kinder and sweeter thing where it just asks you every year, what are you writing? What could you write? How can you write it? And then they give you the tools to help you write it. This is our third year of EWF. It's nice to map our growth onto the kindness of the festival. From nervously running a digital writers workshop festival live stream in 2017, taking a workshop last year, like I had any idea what I was doing, to tonight where we're presenting some of the most incredible artists Australia has to offer. I still have no idea what I'm doing, but EWF is here to support young artists and to help us create things like this, for which I'm deeply grateful. Tonight wouldn't have happened without some key people. So thanks to Aisha, Ruby, Izzy, and the team for making this event and festival what it is. You are all rays of confusingly organised sunshine. I'm in awe of how much you do and hope you all get some sleep soon. Thanks also to Luke for having us a second time. So, enough from me. First up tonight is Darlene Silva Sovrano. This week on Liminal we published interview number 101 with Darlene. In it they write, you can't get better and not be vulnerable. You learn this. You grow older. You no longer believe that you are made of ruins. I think there's a beautiful parallel to this in that Darlene's writing is vulnerable, it ruins you, but refuses to let you believe you could ever be made of ruins. Tonight they're reading Dispatch from The Future Fish, which was published by Cordite, with accompanying drawings by the inimitable Eloise Grills, a white girl who somehow snuck onto a Liminal event. I love it. Please welcome Darlene.
I'm very short. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for having me. Dispatch from the Future Fish was commissioned by Cordite by Rosalind McFarlane, who's here tonight, and I'm very thankful to her for all of her support, and I'm very thankful to Leah for all of their support. I feel very blessed to share this work with you tonight. This is Dispatch from the Future Fish, and it's after Eileen Myles. A reclamation. I come from an archipelago where land is built on top of water, and that is called a reclamation. Our national language is called Tagalog, from Tagailog, meaning people, from the river. The Pasig River cuts Manila in half, dividing it into north and south, the poor and the oligarchy that the poor work for, respectively. I was born at the Hospital of the Infant Jesus in Sampaloc on the northern side. Your President, Eileen Myles. They and them pronouns look good on someone like Eileen Miles. All that cultural power, all that cool swagger bearing. Those pronouns are not for someone like me. Broke student, one poem to my name, top shop blazers. When Eileen Miles gets introduced on the stage as they, in my ear, I listen to the monsoon falling on Batangas. I am waiting for the roof to collapse. I look up to find there is no roof. The part of me that stays is drowning. Eileen says if they were in the lobster, they would want to be reincarnated as a fish. And if I were in the lobster, I would choose to be reincarnated as a river fish, and I would live in the Pasig River. I have chosen a seat so that Eileen Miles is standing in front of me on that stage. I pretend they are reading just to me. Our clothes mirror, them blazer, shirt, and jeans, I flamboyant suit. Eileen Miles is 68, I am 20. They are a future I can see for myself. Oh, I want this for myself. Think I'm a boy today. Think I'll go tell someone. Think I'll be somebody else tomorrow. Think I'm somebody else always remembering the past and anticipating the future. I am an immigrant. I flicker through time. I invent new dreams for myself. This is one of them. Chaos was Melbourne Airport that first time. Everything loud, my body so young. This is looking at my thumb after learning that everyone's fingerprints were different. How do we go on with all this wonder on our hands? Hold still. Turn your ear towards the water side. We are all going forward. None of us are going back. For Reclamation Part 2. The fish from the future has come to tell me that it wants me to reclaim my body. I go to the Pasig River. I find it among the pollution and bring it to a runway. I stop for a second. It looks me in the face, holds my gaze, and calls me by its name. In this moment, I am ready to take that plane, and ready to sleep for 8 hours, and ready to never leave, and ready to return all at once. Future fish, I know who you are. I am they. Thank you so much.
That was amazing. One more round of applause, please. That was fab. Cool. Next up, number 2, we have Jessie 2. I looked up Jessie's bio today and it made me tired. Her first book of poems was published last year. She just sold her current novel last week and she's already working on the next one. I took photographs of her yesterday and she said, "I'm not afraid to be ambitious." And her poems and her writing and herself are all ambitious. And it is absolutely wonderful to see and to be around someone who doesn't shy away from chasing what she wants and putting her words and her vision, putting into words her vision of the world. She's come down from Sydney just for us. So please give a warm, warm welcome to Jessie 2.
Guys, it's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for coming out. I'm really excited, super happy to share this with you. I'm going to read you a letter I wrote to myself, a letter to my 8-year-old self. Letter to myself on how to be a human being. How do you be a human being? A human being whose face does not exist outside of aprons and vacuums and kitchens. A human being whose face is too flat for TV and too yellow for the magazines. How do you talk when nobody's voice resembles your own? When your own world seems to coalesce into an unbearable canon of words from white folks who speak and speak and speak and speak, and nothing they say speaks to you, but you nod and you smile, no teeth, because if you don't get a seat at the table. How do you be a human being whose object eyes glaze back at yours each morning, where the mind is one perpetually escalating conflict, a daily experience of nuances nobody ever talks about, but you talk to yourself. You let the language of others colonize your own terrain, that private space where you guard off that other wall. You guard off from penetration so well. But you're a girl, and then a woman, a young woman. And there is, I know now, nothing more powerful in this world than a young woman. There's nothing in this world more powerful than a young woman. And there is nothing less powerful than a young woman. I had a suspicion that I'd leave a quiet sort of life, a life of the loner, confounded by a series of confusing interactions. The loner sounds pathetic, doesn't it? Somebody whose self-worth is tethered to the lives of others. The loner sounds pathetic, I know. I'd never call myself a loner. I wasn't a loner. I always had people around me. The loner, alone in his cave. Harrison Ford, Blade Runner. Remember that character? He had a really cool name, Deckard. And then he fell in love with a girl named Rachel. Plain, simple Rachel. But she was beautiful. And in the end, that's all that matters. A girl can't be a loner. A girl can't be many things. A loner girl is a damaged thing. She calls herself a damaged thing because she imagines herself as a damaged thing and nobody else. I have the suspicion still that I'd live a strange sort of life, and I try to extinguish this by writing. On the page, I emerge as a clarified, confident person. On the page, I exist like nobody else. On the page, I emerge my flat face. It doesn't matter. On the page, I am neither yellow, black, white, or brown. On the page, I am blue, purple, crimson, and chic. I am trustworthy and diligent, intuitive and careful. I am, in fact, confused. I am always confused. I tell my friends I hunger for the male body. They tell me to go on Tinder and they say, girl, someone like you have no problem. But the warmth of a male body is not the same as the yearning to be touched. It's not a yearning to be fulfilled, the way women have been taught to want to be fulfilled. This yearning feels different. This yearning, it's kind, it's new, it's revolutionary, it's transcendental. Casual sex is easy. For a girl like me, a yellow girl, a girl with a lot of anger to burn, this is what they tell me. In the bedroom, that's the only place, they say, I can let my skin burn. My cerebral intention has no force. I'm a girl, I'm a yellow girl. Sex is sex, and they say, just reach for it. Girl, you just need a good fuck. But sex is something that's been capitalized, merchandised, pillared, and defamed. Reaching for that most common lowest denominator feels lazy, predictable. Sex is sex, and even that has been appropriated by the people who run this country. I'm looking for a way out. I want to write my way through this passageway as a means to reach some infinite jest. I'm looking for something opaque and without a conclusive narrative. I'm not looking for an end, but an interesting start. I want to be able to say what I want to say without being it as an attack. These people are defensive, they're wounded, they're articulate, and they're white, but they're still humans. And in the end, girl is the equivalent of a thing, and a thing is the equivalent to an absence of an absence, and an absence is a thing is a, what the fuck am I on about? Are you even listening? Or are you judging the tone of my voice? Is the intonation of my yellow mouth too strange for you? Or are you looking at my shoes? Because these were not cheap. They were not made by my father's 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 ancestors. I may be yellow and I may be girl, but I'm still part of that massive population of workers who glue the machinery of your laundry baskets and stitch the fabric of your $5 Kmart t-shirts. I'm sorry. I'm always, it seems, making people feel uncomfortable. Is that okay? Is that okay that I'm making someone in this room uncomfortable? Should I ask before I step outside of these boundaries? Fuck, why am I even asking? The truth is, I have no idea how to be a human being. I have no idea how to love without menace, kiss without being possessive, hold on to something good without hidden dark agendas. I have no idea how to use my voice without my voice drowning in my own anger. I have no power. I'm a young woman, sure, but I have no power. This is what I tell myself. Can I abuse power I don't even see myself possessing? All the better, maybe. Not seeing power is a function of having power, right? So this is what it means to be a girl, a tinted off-brown yellow girl. I was born with this face, so this is what it means to be a human being.
Thank you, Jessie. Can I abuse power I don't see myself possessing? Damn. So, as promised on Twitter, tonight we have a surprise interstate guest. SJ Finch, all the way from Perth, gives me hope for the future. They're changing things and they are unafraid. They make art, they write poems, and are currently trying to decolonize the art sector in Perth. And my God, can you please just move to Melbourne? They have just curated seasons, histories, and hopes at the State Library WA, which is insane. Please give a warm, warm welcome to our surprise guest.
This is close to the most nervous I've been. I've been reading Liminal magazine for like years now, and kind of in awe of the work done. Yeah, so like being here when I was asked last night was a shock, and I think I was shocked to the point of rudeness because I kept saying, "Are you sure? Me? Really?" Thanks. Just before I begin, I'd like to also acknowledge that this event takes place on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I'd like to pay respects to elders past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge that I come from the stolen lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people. I come from Whadjuk Noongar Whadjuk Noongar land. I'd also like to kind of further deepen that acknowledgement with saying that as a migrant settler in Australia, I feel like I occupy a space between colonized and colonizer, as well. I deal with oppression and colonial structures of whiteness and empire. I still benefit from the dispossession of First Nations people from this land. And I carry that with me every day, as I believe a lot of us do, dreaming of a future where all are afforded the justice and dignity and freedom that they're entitled to. I'd also like to start with also acknowledging a lot of acknowledgements, but the curation of Seasons Histories Hopes, that's a co-curation. Gabby Lou, who's been my collaborator in that, even though you might not know them, they are incredible, and they did a lot of really necessary work with me on that. We did work together, which really helped because the State Library WA is an incredibly racist institution. A lot of tears, a lot of crying, a lot of frustration, and it really helped to do that together. And I think that's what's really nice about Liminal as well, was the feeling of doing this together. One of the things that we did is we visited a lot of local First Nations elders, one of which was Amberlynn Quamelina, the polygon novelist and associate professor of law at the University of WA. And she said something to us that really influenced us, and I'd like to share with you now. The idea of what is speculative and what is not is too often defined solely by reference to Western notions of the real. Many of us who come from non-Western cultures contest these notions as things cast as speculative by the West, such as the consciousness and agency of non-human life or communicating with our ancestors, are part of our everyday. We also daily endure the false representations generated by the West about Indigenous peoples and peoples of colour. To the extent that our narratives challenge Western notions of reality and Western mythologizing about non-Western peoples, all of our stories might be viewed as speculative. But to the extent that our narratives embody the truths of our cultures, histories, and experiences, none of them are. And so that's the P-face. So I wrote a piece earlier today, maybe like an hour ago, and I'd like to share that with you now. Last week I was in Nipalana, in a nursery for subarctic plants. There was footage on a screen that hung glowing in the middle of that nursery, lighting up the cold circular room where plants lurked in the corners. On the screen, footage of plankton growing and a text. The text was talking about the findings from research into nanoplastics. From a study by Amanda Dawson, turning microplastics into nanoplastics through digestive fragmentation by Antarctic krill, I discovered plastics can now pass through our cell walls. My partner, who lectures in biomedical science, whispered to me, voice shaky as we left the room, "That's incredible. It passes through our cell walls. That's unheard of. What do we do now?" I don't know what we do. We were walking through botanical gardens late at night. The air of cold nights always makes me feel as if I'm traversing through memories. I think of a memory that's not mine, but passed on to me. My mother on Christmas Island, with her friends as they walked to the house of the new expat, the new white man on the island, the new Guaylo. No, she said. She didn't want to meet him, and she walked away from them. She hid behind a bush. She watched through the trees. My parents met through the gaps. All our knowledge, all our language about the ancestors we hold dear, will they pass through our cell walls too? Will their prayers last as forever? Yesterday I was invited on a podcast to talk about dirt. I love talking about dirt. In anticipation, I read an essay, The Stratophysics of Urban Soil Production, where I came across E.L. Wilson's comment that human processes are more bacterial than mammalian. What we produce, the mining, through animal factories, blood and bone, through the Haber-Bosch method of producing ammonium from air, necessary for fertilizer, for war, for animal production, for steel. Reading this made me think about the phosphorus mine on Christmas Island, where my Gungung was an indentured laborer. My Gungung was a violent man. His violence became my mum's violence to me, but I know what he experienced. I know my mum started working on a family farm at 8, that she was the nurse on Christmas Island when her father passed away from tuberculosis. At Australia's request, the British transferred sovereignty of Christmas Island to the illegal state of Australia. 20 million was paid from Australia to Singapore as compensation for the loss of mining. Those born on the island after this transfer were offered Australian citizenship. White Australians were brought over to work on the mine. The empire swallowed us. When my father found out I had interviewed my mum, he wanted to tell me his story on Christmas Island. When he started talking, I secretly recorded him. He said, it was a colonial paradise in the 70s. He had never seen anything like it before. He never thought places like that still existed. He had a maid. He was living in luxury. My dad didn't trust the Malays when they arrived and unionized. He left. Dad has always told me I'm a disappointment. He's always said this, from as long as I can remember. When I was an adult, he revealed to me that was motivated by a fear. The fear was that I would become more intelligent than him. I always used to think that was toxic masculinity until this conversation 2 weeks ago, when I realized my dad never thought that a mixed race child could be more intelligent than him. And he was shocked. Sometimes I think of my mum with a tertiary education. I think of how that would pass through the barriers of the past. Sometimes I think about how I've passed from Australia into Fiji, buoyed by my dad's mining contracts, how I've passed back into WA, how I was given this particular pathway through what were formerly impenetrable walls. And I think of us as well, I think of all people, the ways in which our procedures, our production, our material production, our biological production, the ways in which we think of culture as biological or ancestry, the ways we think of justice, of living, of practices of mixing. A lot of this was actually also a joke about being not Eurasian, but fertilizer, because the main production of Western societies is ammonia, and the production through indentured labor of my Gungung was phosphate. So I feel like that's very fertile ground, that type of trauma for ongoing writing practice. Thank you.
I want to say either that's the shit, or I don't think I could write something like that in a day. Thanks, Tim. So we have Peo Mishi next. When I first came into contact with Peo, I was leaving the Sticky Festival of the Photocopier Zine Fair, and I don't know if you have ever been, but when you put 100 or 200 comic artists in one room, it begins to leak anxiety. It's palpable. And I had marked out all the stalls I was going to visit, and I went, zoom, 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 Rachel Ang,
mostly Rachel Ang. And I was like leaving. I was trying really hard to leave. And I kind of like looked down at this desk and I saw this sign and I think it said something like "Support your queer POC." And it was next to this thing called "Word of a Black Teenage Lesbian," and I was shocked out of my anxiety and I was like, God, yes, finally we need this. And I bought it and I'm so glad I did. We have an incredible comic by Peo, but you actually have to read it yourselves. So we're going to have a quick break so you don't have to sit all together in silence to buy a drink or a book, because we have books at the back, or go to the loo. Peo's just going to do a quick little introduction. And yeah, round of applause for Peo, please.
Hi, I'm Peo. I'm an artist, so I'm not a writer, but we shall be glad for that. I'm really grateful to be asked to be part of this event. Already the speakers who've been on have been amazing and incredible, and I look forward to the rest of it. Thank you.